Lauren Sisler is a national sports broadcaster and Emmy Award-winning journalist with ESPN and the SEC Network. Her story is one of resilience and redemption. While attending Rutgers University as a gymnast, Lauren experienced unimaginable loss, losing both of her parents to addiction within hours of each other. Rather than letting tragedy define her, Lauren has used her platform to become a powerful advocate for addiction awareness and mental health. She brings her passion for storytelling to every sideline and studio, and her testimony of faith and perseverance continues to inspire countless lives.
I'll tell you what, my mantra is fall in love with your story. And again, it's been a long journey. Losing both my parents to fentanyl overdoses within 5 hours of each other. I was a freshman at Rutgers, just trying to navigate life as an 18-year-old. And wanting to find the joy again, right? Because I felt such that deep shame inside of me. And it was the people around me. It was the people that were surrounding me. It was the support system.
CWS, please welcome Lauren Sisler.
Whoa, 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 what's up, y'all? Hello. Y'all, this is so fun. I've been hanging out at this table for much of the weekend, and now, table 5, baby. Let's go. Ooh, y'all, this is fun. I feel like I got this like carpet up here too. I'm like, ooh, where's the shimmy gonna go down now? Oh yeah. Wow. I feel like I have to catch my breath for a moment when I get up here on stage because you get out here in front of the lights, the cameras, and just the message, right, in the heart that I've just been, thinking about. But as, many people have come before me on this stage over the weekend, some words of truth have come to me, and really just wanting to kind of leave it to God to just speak in this moment. And so, wow, this is awesome. So thank you all for showing up today. Thank you for committing to be here. And I want to first start by saying, as a sports reporter, it's so amazing to be out on that football field, to be out on the court, just witnessing some of the greatest moments in sports, right? Louis talked about it last night, the kick six, being on the sidelines when that game-winning run that field goal back to the end zone by Chris Davis happens, the exhilarating moments. But I'll tell you what, some of the most powerful stories that happen, they don't happen when the lights are on, when the fans are screaming. It happens in the quiet, in the mess of it all, when the voices in our head are telling us we're not enough. That's when some of the most powerful stories happen. But when we learn to lean into God and to remember that through resilience and through faith and through trust in God, we have the ability to get back up when life knocks us down. And that to me is where the most powerful stories happen. And you guys are walking out and living out those stories every day, because here's the bottom line. We all face adversity. You know what I just realized? I left my clicker back there. I'm sitting here like, where's my clicker? Can I get my clicker, please? I got all hyped up back there. I was doing my dance moves and stuff. And I'm like, dang, gotta get my clicker. Clicker. Anyways, they'll bring it to me. So what is that life all about, right? When you get knocked down, when adversity strikes and you feel like you don't have the strength to get back up, but guess what? God teaches us and shows us that we all have the ability to get back up and to keep going. We all have the ability to become shatterproof, to build a life of resilience. You can throw up that slide for me. To build a life of resilience. See, look, here we go, y'all. I got so hyped up that I forgot my clicker. So with that, we'll see if it comes up. Boom, baby. So becoming shatterproof, building a life of resilience where no obstacle has the ability to stand in your way. Because that's where the human spirit really comes in, right? When you can prove to people as you get knocked down time and time again that you have the ability, even when your world seems irrevocably shattered, to get back up and to give permission to others to do the same. And so I'm gonna take you through a little bit of a storytelling journey today where some of those lessons really came to light for me along the way. And so first and foremost, let me introduce you to the Sisler family. My mom, my dad, my older brother Alan. We were a sports family, always on the grow. We grew up in Roanoke, Virginia. And my brother was a 3-sport athlete, football, baseball, basketball. Dad was a volunteer coach. And you know, I was the one that was always swinging around on the monkey bars, acting a fool. And my parents were like, we gotta do something with this girl. All energy all the time. So they enrolled me in the sport of gymnastics at the early age of 3. And little did they know that the sport of gymnastics was going to take off very quickly. And I got a gymnast in the room right there, baby. Whoop, 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 whoop. And so not only did the sport of gymnastics take off, as I stand up here, many of you are looking at me a little side-eyed, being like, you were a gymnast? Really? Yes, I know. I'm 5'9", entirely too tall to be a gymnast. My girl, Zoe, right? My girl Zoe, she's got like the perfect petite gymnast body with the flex. Oh no, lanky Lauren here. But the sport was something I fell in love with, and I was so dedicated to it, training over 20 hours a week, driving over an hour each way to gymnastics practice. So let's get real. Olympics aren't happening for this monstrosity. However, maybe a college scholarship was within reach. So that's what I set my heart on. I'm gonna get that college scholarship. So I started sending my tapes all around the country. And I know we have men and women in this room of different age ranges. So I want to highlight the fact that I sent out tapes, VHS tapes. Because y'all, my friends, y'all youngins in the room, and I'm pretty sure you're one of them, had it made, like the huddle videos, the YouTube, you know, you send it out. No, I'm sitting here addressing, y'all ready for this? The white label. Lauren Sisler. My phone number, jimtaz1sis@netscape.net. Y'all, that's prehistoric times, okay? So I'm sending these tapes all over the country. Schools I was looking at, UNC, NC State, West Virginia, and Air Force Academy. And Air Force Academy really became the top of my list because my dad was in the military. I was born in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And I felt like military was in the blood. My brother was pursuing a career in the Navy. But the other piece of that too was I wanted to go to med school. I wanted to help athletes get back out on the field of play and experience that and help them. I could empathize. And so I thought that was the ticket. My family couldn't afford to put me in college, much less med school. So that's the ticket, baby, Air Force Academy. So y'all know when you send out those tapes, you're waiting for that letter. It comes in the mail. Finally, one day, I see that letterhead from Air Force Academy, and I'm like, ooh, baby, here we go, moment of truth. Here's the problem, y'all. There's this thing called the SATs, and I'll tell you, I was not a good test taker. So I took the SATs, and I'll just tell you right now, bombed it, took it again, bombed it again, score got lower, and then the score got lower for the 3rd time. So guess what? Dear Lord, please, I'm holding on to you to get me into the Air Force Academy. That letter comes in the mail, I go rip it open, and y'all know the famous words, we regret to inform you, rejection, y'all, rejection is real. Let me tell you, I was at the pinnacle of rejection at this point because the recruiting process, it's so hard, it'll just dagger in your heart time and time and time again. Air Force Academy's out the window, but there was one gleaming moment of hope that came from Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, y'all. And I'm a Virginia girl. I knew nothing about New Jersey. I knew nothing about Rutgers. Where is Rutgers? Huh? But I got that call, come on for an official visit. So I flew there to Rutgers, checked it out, checked out the scene. And of course, the minute that I opened my mouth, you're not from around here, are you? I'm like, well, what gave that away, y'all? Huh? But it was one of those things where when I got there, I was like, you know, this is a place that I feel like I could spread my wings and fly. This is a place where I think I could make something of myself and continue living out that dream that not only I had worked for, but that my parents had worked for. And so I signed my letter of intent and I'm off to Rutgers and the world awaits. Life is good, y'all. Woo! Well, figuring out the gymnastics, going to football games. Mind you, We were 1-11 my freshman year, but I still showed up, war paint on the face. I was not a fair weather fan. I was all in on Rutgers. By the way, the birthplace of college football. So all you championship hoisting trophy people out there, we invented the sport. So I'm living it up. Fast forward to my second semester. Talking to my roommate, Kara, for a few minutes. Pick up the phone and call my parents like I always did, because not a day went by that I didn't call and talk to my parents, have a conversation with them. We were tight, best friends. Talked to my mom for a few minutes. She handed the phone off to my dad, who was dozing off on the couch per usual. And he had just celebrated his 52nd birthday. And I remember being disappointed first time I hadn't been there to celebrate with him. And he said, "Hey, Lauren, you're gonna be home this summer. It's gonna be great. We'll have all the time to celebrate." We said our I love yous goodbye. And I remember him telling me, "Lauren, keep working hard. We are so proud of you." Hung up the phone, set my alarm clock, drifted off to sleep. Next thing you know, I wake up to my phone ringing. I grab the phone and look at the receiver, and it says home. I answer the phone with hesitation, and I said, "Hello?" And my dad on the other end says, "Lauren, I need to talk to your brother." I said, "Well, what's wrong?" He said, "Lauren, I just need to talk to your brother." My brother was stationed in the Navy at the time. He was a parachute rigger in the Navy. Figured, wow, something's going on with my brother, who knows? So I found my brother's phone number, recited it back to my dad, and my dad said, "I'll call you right back." No more than 30 seconds went by. That phone rings again, and I answer, "Hello?" And there's a long pause. And my dad says, "Lauren, your mom died." I said, "What? What do you mean mom died?" He said, "Lauren, I can't explain it now. I need you to get on the next plane you can. I'll be at the airport to pick you up." So as I slunk down, trying to figure out how in the world I'm gonna live life without my two best friends, without my mom there to embrace me, my roommate comes over to me and she starts shaking me and she says, Lori, wake up, you're having a nightmare." And I said, "It's not a nightmare, my mom died." And so I start throwing stuff in my bags, packing my bags. I'm 18 years old, y'all. I had no more than $50 in my bank account. We call up the airline, we get on hold for 30 minutes. Finally, we get through to somebody. Didn't have enough to cover the $250 ticket, so my roommate used her emergency credit card, got the airplane ticket home, got a ride to the airport with one of my friends who had a car on campus. All I wanted to do, y'all, was run and jump in my dad's arms. All I wanted my dad to do was tell me everything was gonna be okay, because my dad made everything okay. He always made everything okay. Plane touches down, y'all. I grab my bags, I go sprinting through the terminal as fast as I could, and I run outside, and I'm looking everywhere. And next thing you know, my cousin and my uncle pull up, and y'all, I'm confused because where's my dad at? But I'm also relieved because thank goodness somebody's familiar, a familiar face, someone that can help me make sense of this all. We're gonna get in the car. My dad's probably at the hospital or he's at home. We're gonna drive home. We're gonna see my dad real soon. We start driving. Finally, nobody says a word. I work up the courage. I said to my Uncle Mike, Uncle Mike, I just wanna see my dad. Where's my dad? And y'all, to this day, I can still feel the gravel underneath the car. As he puts the car in park and he looks over at my cousin and looks at me in the backseat of that car and he says, Lauren, I'm so sorry, but your dad's passed away too. And that was the weight of the world now on my shoulders. I could just feel it as I sat there. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna move on? How am I gonna keep going? My two best friends, the two people that I love more than anything in this world, the two people that until the day that I left for college would come in my room, would tuck me in, we would say our prayers, and they'd always tell me that through hard work, faith, and determination, you're gonna go places. With God, all things are possible. Gone. The very next day, I'm standing in the funeral home next to my brother. That'll be $7,000. So now I gotta bury both of my parents and then figure out next steps. We're pulling into the driveway of my Auntie Linda's house, my mom's sister, and she says, all right, Lauren, time to go back to Rutgers. I'm like, what do you mean go back to Rutgers? How in the world am I gonna go back to Rutgers? And she says, Lauren, you have a commitment to yourself, your university, your teammates. This is what your parents would want. You have to go back to Rutgers. So y'all, I get on a plane, I go back to Rutgers, and let me tell you, it was an absolute roller coaster ride. Once an AB honor roll student, C's and D's became the norm. Never seen an F on a paper in my entire life. I go home for the very first summer after my parents passed away. I'm standing in the living room of our house next to my brother as a moving truck comes up the driveway, and within a few short hours, everything in that house, everything down to the last picture frame on the wall, boxed up, taped shut, thrown on the back of a moving truck to be auctioned off to the estate to complete strangers. Y'all, there was nothing left. There was no will, the cars were repossessed, house went into foreclosure. We had nothing. And I go back to school for yet another semester, y'all, and I am drowning. I am drowning, I am failing, because the bottom line is you ain't making the grades, you're gonna lose your scholarship. You lose your scholarship, you're going home. What are you gonna do now, Lauren? All the hopes and dreams that I had for my life, not just for my life, but my parents had for my life, were shattered into a million pieces. And after wallowing in it for a while, my gymnastics coach, she sat me down and she said, Lauren, we love you. We are here for you. But the bottom line is, you've got to be willing to stand up and take the first step forward. Nobody else can do it for you. And that is when my perspective shifted ever so slightly, realizing I've been knocked down, but I have a choice. I have a choice as to whether I'm gonna get back up or I'm gonna stay here right where I am. Because here's the thing, y'all, in life, falling isn't failing unless you refuse to get back up. And when I finally picked myself back up, y'all, it was one foot in front of the other, baby steps. I got a mentor, I got a tutor, I started going to study hall, decided that probably sports medicine ain't gonna cut it with a 2.0 GPA. Ain't nobody wanna go to a doctor with a 2.0 GPA anyways. Get yourself a second opinion. So I figured, let's switch majors. Let's go in a different direction. I started seeing a therapist, a counselor that helped me to really work through what I was going through in my heart and in my mind. And I found myself back in the chair, in the room with believers who had faith in God that reminded me it was then that I carried you. Because here's the thing, when my parents died, I didn't stop believing, but you know, y'all, we do this thing called, I'm gonna lean out a little, right? Instead of leaning in, I leaned out. You wanna know why? Because I was mad. I was angry. I was angry because I felt God had taken the two most important people in my life and abandoned me and left me to figure this thing out as an orphan, that I wasn't worthy. Just dropped me right there. I was mad, y'all. I was angry. But when I made that commitment to lean in, that's when my world changed. That's when I felt like, y'all, I could breathe again. So I put the wheels in motion for this whole career in sports, right? And I'm doing life, bouncing around the sports broadcasting career. Graduate in 2006. I go to CNBC, I go to my hometown station. Finally, I land in Birmingham, Alabama, y'all, in 2011. And I'm gonna tell y'all, here we go. Y'all ready for this? I knew football was a big deal in Alabama, but I didn't realize how big of a deal it was in Alabama. So I got my indoctrination pretty quickly because, oh, by the way, there's this place called Denny Chimes. And I'm sorry, Auburn folks, I'm giving Alabama a little bit of love here, but it's a story, okay? Alabama and Auburn both have A-Day, spring game, glorified scrimmage, okay? So it's 2012, it's my first big opportunity to be out here covering big time football, and y'all, I am so fired up. It's Alabama A-Day. I'm thinking, all right, we roll up to the stadium and there's 80,000 fans out here for a glorified scrimmage. Are you kidding me? So before the football game, there's this place called Denny Chimes Walk of Fame. It's where the team captains from the previous season come and they put their handprint and cleat print in the wet cement and they do the whole, pomp and circumstance. Well, as I'm standing there waiting for Nick Saban and Dante Hightower and Trent Richardson and Mark Barron to get there, my photographer says, hey, Lauren, I need the tripod. Can you run and get the tripod? And I'm like, I got tennis shoes on. I'm still kind of an athlete, maybe more of a has-been. Turn on the jets, I go running down University Boulevard as fast as I could. I rip open that live truck door. I grab that tripod, and as soon as I'm slamming it shut, all of a sudden I hear the sirens. Woo, woo. You know what that means, y'all? Police escort is on the way. Nick Saban and company are on the way. So I turn on the jets, I go running back down University Boulevard, flash my credential, I'm official. And I get to the sea of reporters, and they're in a circle now. And I'm like, oh, well, where's my photographer? I've got to deliver the tripod. Well, instead of running around the circle, y'all know the quickest way to get to my photographer would be right through the middle of the circle. And there's a reason, y'all, that those photographers were all standing in a circle. To protect thy wet concrete. So I step right into that wet cement. Oh my gosh. Sirens are getting louder. Nick Saban and guys are coming closer. What am I gonna do? Y'all, I'm the rookie. I'm the one that literally everybody's looking at me, pointing, ha, 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 Twitter's blowing up. I'm pretty sure the fans, some of them thought it was funny, but some of y'all Alabama fans out there, man, they were like, ruined our best laid plans for perfection. And then I see this man over to my right, and I'm pretty sure he had halo and wings that day. And he walks over, and he had a trowel in his hand. I call it a spatula, but it's a trowel. And he gets down on one knee, y'all, and he starts smoothing over that wet cement. Whew. And he looks up at me and says, we were expecting someone like you to come along someday. So I have to say, and all my ladies in the room will really appreciate this one, I am the first and only female to ever be enshrined in the Alabama Football Walk of Fame. So there you go. Okay, so that's my indoctrination into college football. Figured it out. So from the sidewalks of Alabama to the sidelines of ESPN, I finally get that call in 2016. First ESPN game happens in Auburn. It's Cupcake Week, middle of October 2016. Was I good? Not really. Was I okay? Not really. Y'all, I was a nervous wreck. I was an absolute nervous wreck. But here's the bottom line, y'all. Those lights, camera, action come on. You can train your entire life for one moment, and you're still gonna fail. You're still gonna get nervous. You're still gonna make mistakes. But here's what I've learned. If you stand on that ledge for long enough and you start taking steps backwards, where's the fun in that? You gotta grab your parachute of faith, designed specifically by God, and y'all, you gotta jump scared, baby. Go for it, right? Because guess what? We all have to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere, just like the men and women and the athletes that go out there and compete every single day and that make it to championship, make it to victory, and hoist that national championship trophy. But here's the thing. There was once a point in my life where I looked at this image on the screen and I said, oh, national championship, this is so cool, right? But it's so much more than the wins and losses. It's not about the championships, y'all. It's about the stories. And when I look at this image on the screen and I see the confetti falling on the field, that's a story. Layers of stories, in fact, of not just the players, but the individuals that touch their lives, even if just for a moment in time. The moms, the dads, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the brothers, the sisters, the Pop Warner coaches, the Little League coaches, elementary, middle school, high school, on up the ranks, nutrition staff, academic staff, every single one of you in this room has a touch point, even if just for a moment in time. So this championship and this story doesn't just belong to them. It belongs to every single one of you. So when game day rolls around, my job and my hope is to find one of the best stories that I can find. So I'll dig deep, I'll get my assignment, and I'll find maybe one or two stories. So I'll call up the sports information director, have a conversation, kind of navigate things. Well, this particular week, I had the opportunity to cover Kentucky and South Carolina. And I was really excited because I'd found this story about this young man named J.J. Weaver. And J.J. Weaver, linebacker at Kentucky, amazing young man, amazing story, had gone through so much adversity in his lifetime. More recently, torn ACL, lost his father to gun violence, and as you can see on his right hand, he's got 6 fingers. This young man was so ashamed of those 6 fingers that he used to hide from it. He used to stick 2 fingers into 1 finger of that glove, so much so that it would hurt because he was ashamed of it. Because growing up, people would tell him that he was less than unworthy, called him an alien, bullied him. So he did everything he could to hide and mask the special gift that God ultimately gave him, his superpower. When he got to Kentucky, after cowering in silence for so many years, hiding, he decided to step out. He had courage to share his story. He started a foundation called The Perfect Fit, for he works with other student athletes, helping them deal with grief and adversity, and really has made a difference. And so I'm excited. It's game day. I get to tell this story. I'm so fired up about it. So it's game time, baby. Guys up in the booth, they're like, all right, we're gonna toss it down to you for the J.J. Weaver story. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready, y'all. They toss it down to me. I start sharing his story, y'all. And all of a sudden, I hear the hand clap. The ball's on the ground. The ball is snapped. And you know what that means in my world as a sideline reporter? Time to zip it. Ain't nobody want to hear you talking. It's time to play some football. So in that moment, y'all, I felt so disappointed because I didn't get to tell his story like I wanted. I didn't get to share his story and every ounce of his story that I wanted. I felt like that man deserved more than 30 seconds. But 30 seconds was all it took to make an unbelievable difference. Oh, I did it. Go back. You can push play on the video. I didn't hit the red button, y'all. I hit the green button. Stand by. So 30 seconds, y'all, was all it took to make an immeasurable impact. Because what happened that day was, after this story was aired, after we talked about J.J. Weaver on that broadcast, this 3rd grade teacher named Kate Cameron, she wrote into the athletic department talking about the story she had seen and how moved she was, how it impacted her life, because she too was born with extra fingers on her hands. She also had 2 students in her 3rd grade class that were also born with extra fingers on their hands. And wow, if only J.J. Weaver could come visit the school when he decided to show up that day. He spent time with those students. He spent time loving on them, talking to them, encouraging them, sharing his story, the story that God wrote for him. And I think about this. I see these kids, and I think about the trajectory of their lives potentially being changed forever, all because J.J. Weaver had the courage to speak up, to share his voice, to share his story, and to stand in the gap for those kids that day. Oh, what an amazing story, an amazing young man, and just an ounce of courage. And y'all, all it took was 30 seconds. We oftentimes, as we're living life, going through challenges, walking through adversity, we think, man, nobody's listening, nobody cares, nobody wants to hear my story. But you know what? Your story matters. Your story can have impact. Your story can be the key to helping someone else get back up, to keep pushing forward, to keep going, even when it feels like they don't have an ounce of strength left in them. And I'll tell you, for so long as I stand up here, I was like J.J. Weaver, striving for acceptance, striving for perfection, hiding who I really was because of the word shame, y'all. Shame. Y'all, I was ashamed of what happened to my parents that day on March 24th of 2003, ashamed of what took their lives. So what did I do, y'all? I ran and I ran and I ran as hard and as fast as I could away from the truth, because their legacy was bound in my hands, and it was up to me to preserve their legacy at all costs. Many of you were probably wondering if I was going to dive into that part of my story. Well, if you asked me that over a decade ago, no way. Why? Because of that shame. Y'all was the first one on the dance floor, last one to leave, the overcomer, the warrior. Lauren, you're so strong. So the voices in my head told me, well, you can't break. You can't show people what's actually happening inside of you. Right? But guess what? That was the enemy. That was the enemy trying to silence me, because, oh, by the way, shame, ooh, boy, it thrives in darkness. It wants you in the dark. Don't bring that into light. So I spent years and years and years. Y'all, for 7 years, my best friend didn't know how my parents died. For 7 years. So when people would ask me, well, what happened to your parents? I'd say, well, mom died of respiratory failure. Dad died of a heart attack. Why? Because y'all, that sounded so much better than my parents died of fentanyl overdoses. That's what I held on to. I held on to that story because their legacy was bound in my hands, and it was up to me to preserve it at all costs. But as I continued to run, finally, my mom's sister, my auntie Linda, she got through to me, and she helped me to see that my parents aren't defined by how they died, but by how they lived their lives, with joy, with compassion, with love. Were they perfect? No, but not a single person in this room is perfect. But they knew the love of the Lord. And when I think about their story and I think about their fight, what pains me is to know that my parents did the last few years of their life in silence because of the pain and the shame that consumed them. That they felt that their voice couldn't be heard. And once again, that's the enemy attacking. Because that's where it wants us to live. That's where it wants us to thrive. The enemy wants us there. Don't come out of hiding. And that's where I lived for a really long time, y'all. But when I finally had the courage and the encouragement to step out into the light, y'all, those shackles of shame, I'm telling you what, God unlocked those so fast and so quick. The freedom that has come from being able to own my story and to step into the truth has been profound. And that's where I want to bring each and every one of you along with me, right? Because all of you have a story, and when you start to use your story to impact, to stand in the gap, to make a difference, you're doing that every single day, whether you realize it or not. You have the power to unlock someone else's prison, right? But it takes a little bit of courage and a lot of faith to step out into that light and say, hey, this is me. This is all of me. Because, oh, by the way, God knows all of that. You're not disappointing him. Now let's step out there. Let's take ownership of it. Because, y'all, there is such a freedom that comes from that truth. And each of your steps have been divinely appointed for that very reason. So why hide? Don't hide it anymore. And I'll tell you, we all like to run away from adversity, right? It's one of those things where it's like, oh, adversity, let me turn and run. Let me run away from it. Let me run away from it. No, y'all. Lean in, attack it. Because adversity can be the very thing that becomes your gift to others. What you have walked through, what better person to walk through something and give that gift to somebody else that's experienced it. So y'all quit running. You gotta quit running. You gotta stand here, you gotta be in it. And sometimes that is a scary place to be. But I would encourage you guys to stand in it and be where your feet are. I hear it from a lot of coaches. The first coach I heard it from was Nick Saban, but I'm sure all of you guys have been around it. It's in the locker rooms, it's everywhere, be where your feet are. But I think so often, y'all, because we are running and we are hiding, chasing that next thing, that next job promotion, right? What's next for me? Where am I going? What am I doing? I remember getting the call at ESPN that I was gonna get to do SEC Nation. Oh, this is awesome, dream job. Y'all, the minute I started on that track, I was already thinking about the next thing. Ooh, what's next? What's next? What's next? But y'all gotta realize as you're running away from that next thing or chasing that next thing, running to that next thing, God needs you right here in this moment, in the present, because this is where your purpose lies, right here. And I'm talking about in your job, and I'm talking about at home. Because all so often, y'all, we're reaching for our phones, grabbing for those emails, and I'm notorious for doing it, y'all. Meanwhile, our kids are reaching for us. Mommy, Daddy, I need you. Our student athletes, those are surrounding us, they need us. But sometimes when we're buried in what we're doing, we don't have the ability and the wherewithal to be able to look up and say, this person needs me. I need to be right here in this moment, right now, exactly where God has put me. And I'll tell you, that has come to me more than ever since I became a mom to my little son, Mason. I love you, John. My husband's here today. He and I were fortunate. We had a little 4th of July baby, Mason. He just turned 2. And I'll tell you, it's been quite a journey. But as I think about being present, being where my feet are, it has been so profound to me as I stood at my parents' gravesite with him. And y'all, he's young. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't know. But one day he's gonna ask questions. One day he's gonna wanna know who his grandparents were. He's gonna wanna know who they were and who the 2 people were that raised me up and made me who I am today and helped to shape who I am. And here's the thing, it's easy for us to highlight the good moments in our lives, the good chapters. But y'all know there are chapters in our storybook of life that we'd rather just rip out and throw in the trash. But my hope, as I share with him about my parents, his grandparents, is that he doesn't just see the good and the love and the joy. I want him to see that. But I also want him to see the hard. I want him to see the tough. I want him to see the struggle. Because that's what life is all about, and that's what legacy is all about. Living out our legacy doesn't just highlight the great moments, the highlight reel moments, the championship moments. It's the tough moments, the quiet moments, the silent moments when nobody's out there watching, when nobody's out there cheering you on. That's what legacy is all about. And when each and every single one of you can learn to fall in love with your story, you are able to take the story that you once wanted to rewrite and know that this is the story that God is writing for you. The story that God is writing for you and continues to write. And when you can learn to fall in love with that story, man, You find that joy, and you find that purpose, and you find that meaning. And this is where you have the opportunity to become shatterproof. Because guess what, y'all? You're not broken, you're becoming. And when you learn to take those pieces that have been shattered into a million pieces, you get down on the floor and you pick those back up, y'all. And you realize that this is God's work. This is his masterpiece. And when you lean in, you can take that from him and you can piece back your life into something so beautiful and build this amazing foundation to serve others. Because y'all, ultimately, that's why we're here. So I encourage you, fall in love with your story. Let it serve, let it shine, and let it glorify God. Thank y'all so much for this opportunity. Much love. And we got Q&A. Y'all, I'm so sorry I whiffed on that whole front part. I literally got out here, I was so excited. He and I were dancing in the back, and I'm like, oh, I forgot my clicker. And literally Alexis and I had the whole thing like, oh, we're good. I got it planned out. I'm using a clicker. We're good to go.
I'm just saying, if I would love to have you like at a wedding. You're probably like the center of you at the wedding, somebody get married. John's like, no, you don't, no, I don't know. Pastor, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just saying. All jokes aside, wasn't that powerful? Man, that was a really, really, really powerful. So good.
Thank you.
The one thing that I like when you talked about the cement story, because sometimes we all step in some cement, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
We all step in some cement at times, but just how the Lord is, he'll come and smooth it over and teach you a lesson out of it, which leads like to that Romans 8:28, and we know that for those who love God, all things, not some things, not a few things, but all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. And I just see there's so much purpose on your life, Lauren. I mean, it's really evident. Your enthusiasm, your passion for people, your passion for conversation, your passion for life. And I have a few questions for you. The first question is when did you realize your story wasn't just about loss, but about purpose?
Woo. You know, I think really a lot of that purpose obviously came. Now, again, we talk about baby steps because, y'all, it took me, you know, I obviously mentioned I wrote a book, and it took me 19 years to even get the courage to start that process. Of like digging deep and understanding. But I'd say like the purpose in my life and where I started to realize that is really when I would get out there and report. And it used to kind of be about the lights and the camera, the me, oh, me, oh, me. Oh, I get to interview all these cool people, you know, Charles Barkley and da-da-da-da-da. But then I realized like, wait a sec. Like the impact that is happening, and you see this ripple effect by one story that just changes everyone's entire perspective. And so when I go out on that football field, you know, this is like what I do, and it just has become my thing. Like I literally get myself grounded. It's always the national anthem. It's my place. Put my hand on my heart, and that is where I go to God. Literally go to God. National anthem is playing, and that's where I say, God, please give me the opportunity to share the story, the right words, create the ripple effect. Let's go out here and create a ripple effect. Let's go out here and impact. That's where I talk to God. I talk to my parents. I talk to my brother now. And it's just where I spend that time, and it's where it gets me grounded. So when I go into that game, I know it ain't about me, and it's not about the broadcast crew and any of that. It is about the men and the women that are out there competing and finding that truth and that hope. That when somebody flips on a game, y'all know, you turn on games and you're like, I could care less about this team. But it's not about the game, right? When you can bring people to the story that's behind it all. Yeah. That's where magic happens. And I think when I started making that transition and seeing that shift, that this is not a job, this is not a paycheck, that this is a voice and a purpose, let's get it.
Man, really strong and really good. And I also wanted to follow up on that because you work at probably the hugest sports network in all the world, as we all know. And sometimes, you know, standing for God or even talking about God or sharing God is not advocated. So my question for you, and even for that you can share some wisdom in the room, is how do you stay bold in sharing your faith in the workplace that maybe not necessarily advocating you being, open about your relationship with God.
Yeah, that's so good. Because let me tell you, y'all, I used to just like freeze. I would go to like post something on social media and I would literally be like, ooh, let me walk this back. I don't know how this is gonna go. And here's the thing, I go down and I sit and interview a kid and I say, what got you back out here? And literally, I mean, it's like the Holy Spirit just comes alive. I sit on phone calls with these guys and like sob. I have to like mute my channel because I'm like sobbing as they're telling the story about losing their brother to cancer and how the brother's sitting in the hospital room and literally is like, I'm going to be with the Lord and I've already won. Like, ooh. And I'm thinking, okay, like that's the story that needs to be out there. And for so long, I would just, I would literally never go there. Like if it's faith, God, any of those things, but I'm like, wait a sec, why am I burying that? Because that's the story they want out there. I'm doing them a disservice by not telling their story and all of it. And so standing boldly in that and realizing like, first of all, y'all ask for forgiveness later, okay? That's what I say. Right. But I think God rewards us when we stand bold. And we stand bold in the truth and we speak his truth, because I think that's where we oftentimes, let me shy away. And we were talking about it back in the green room. How do we incorporate that into our everyday lives? Because so often we feel like, we're gonna offend somebody or ostracize somebody or whatever. But when you can stand bold in that, I just find that like the courage, everything just starts to percolate in such amazing ways. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't care if my boss at ESPN is looking at this. I don't care, whatever. This is who I am. I'm gonna take ownership of it. This is my story, this is their story, and it's gonna be out there. Because you even talked about it, right? We said back there, it takes a tragedy sometimes for the media to pick up on, let's pray about it. Our thoughts and prayers are with this person.
Right.
But why does it have to be when tragedy strikes?
Right.
Why can't it be in all the goodness?
Yeah.
Why can't we praise? Doesn't have to be in the darkness.
In the bad things, yeah. And I think in essence to that, one of the things you have to understand about faith, let me tell you guys something. The number one thing that it will erode or prevent your faith from growing, it's not fear, it's not doubt, it's comfort. That's the number one thing that prevents your faith from growing. You get comfortable with where you're at. You get comfortable with a job. You get comfortable with a position. You get comfortable with limelight. It's always comfort that prevents you. And if you're willing to sacrifice that comfort in the essence of God and push yourself and allow your life to be a light, no matter if it's bad or if it's great, you should have joy if things are great, because God has allowed that joy to hit your life. And if you're going through tragedy, you should allow God to shine through your life. There's certain things people say all the time, I'm in a valley. I'll say this to you, you went through a valley. I can't imagine losing my parents back to back like that and dealing with that. But here's the one thing about valleys, is like mountaintops give you maturity, but mountaintops give you perspective, but valleys give you maturity. So when you go through a valley, you're maturing how God is wanting to grow you. You're in a public, secular company, that's amazing, it's big, but even sometimes it can feel constricting. God is maturing you to share your faith, maturing you to be a light.
So good.
And so I want you guys to be encouraged by Lauren's story and be encouraged by how God is using her and profoundly impacting all these people. Last question for you would be this. The one thing that you would want people in this room to take away from the goodness of God in your story as it's still developing before your very eyes. I see your beautiful baby, and wow, you're evolving mom, and your amazing husband's here. What's the one thing you would want the people to take away?
Yeah, I just want y'all to know that, when doubts creep up in your head and when you just don't think you're enough and that your story's not enough and that you don't have what it takes to make an impact, right? Because I know we talked about it a little bit on the panel yesterday and even into today, is just kind of that message of like, am I where I'm supposed to be? And making the most of like where I'm supposed to be. But God is directing your path. I always use the analogy of like having a flashlight, right? Because like you're not gonna get to see the whole path. We wish you could, right? But that flashlight gives you just enough light to say, trust in me, take these steps forward, and keep moving. And so I just would encourage all of you guys, when you can find that freedom away from trying to control every situation and really just being right where your feet are, as we said, and knowing that this part of your life, it might not be your dream job, your dream goal, But wherever you're at right now is sharpening you for that next step.
That's good.
Sharpening you for what's to come. Because guess what? A lot of times we get ahead of ourselves and think, I'm ready for that next thing. Yeah, right. You know, like I look back and I'm like, I thought I was ready. Are you kidding me? I was about to go fall flat on my face. And I did, time and time and time again. So it's gonna happen. But I think just trusting that you're exactly where you're meant to be and to live in that moment is going to tee you up. And then, like I said, I always say fall in love with your story, because I will tell you, you will find so much freedom from that. So I know we're gonna have some time for reflection. I would love for you to just dig in and find parts of your story that you are like, oh, I keep that on a shelf. Baby, get it off that shelf. Let's get it out in the open. Let's talk about it, because I'm telling you, that is going to encourage and inspire other people to do the same thing. And when you're able to do that with the people you love at home, the people you love at work, let's get it.
Let's get it. I like that. I like that. Come on, that's great. Great advice. Great advice.